comment. Tell us, from which country or city are you watching today? We enjoy connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Iron Foundations. Nathaniel Decker built things to last forever. His construction empire spanned 3 states. His marriage had weathered 22 years, and his reputation as a man who delivered on promises was unquestioned. At 51, he possessed the weathered hands of someone who had started from nothing, the calculating eyes of a self-made millionaire, and beneath it all, the ice-cold heart of a man who never forgot a slight. Sitting in his home office, surrounded by blueprints for a new development project, Nathaniel remembered his father's words. A man who can't protect what's his isn't a man at all. His father had been a steel worker who died young from a workplace accident, leaving Nathaniel to fend for his mother and himself at 16. He learned early that the world showed no mercy to the weak. The sprawling Tudor-style home in Portland's West Hills neighborhood represented everything he'd built. Diana, his wife, had been with him since college, a philosophy major with amber eyes who'd seen the potential in the rough-edge scholarship student. Their daughter, Vanessa, had inherited her mother's beauty and her father's stubbornness, though lately, at 19, she seemed to have forgotten whose blood ran in her veins. Working late again, Diana leaned against the doorframe, her silk blouse untucked, a glass of wine in her hand. At 47, she still turned heads, a fact she'd been leveraging more frequently at charity events where Nathaniel's presence was optional. The riverfront deadline moved up. Commissioner wants the proposals by end of month. He didn't look up from his blueprints. You should let Roy handle more. Isn't that why you made him partner? She sipped her wine, studying him with something he might have once mistaken for concern. Roy Blackwell had been Nathaniel's right hand for 15 years. Brilliant with numbers, smooth with clients. He'd earned his partnership through competence and loyalty, or so Nathaniel had believed. Some things need my personal attention. Nathaniel finally looked up. You're dressed up for a Tuesday night at home. Diana's fingers touched the pendant at her throat, a simple silver piece Nathaniel didn't recognize. Book club ran late. We were discussing Dostoevsky. Crime and Punishment? Nathaniel asked with unintended irony. The brothers Karamazov. Diana smiled tightly. Family betrayal. Russian classics are always so illuminating. After she left, Nathaniel opened his desk drawer and removed the small black device his security consultant had provided. The GPS tracker showed Diana's Mercedes had been parked for 3 hours that evening. Not at Caroline Westfield's house, where book club was held, but the Woodlands Hotel across town. It had been the 3rd book club meeting in 2 weeks. Nathaniel closed his fist around the device. He'd built his first construction business with nothing but determination and a used pickup truck. He hadn't gotten where he was by ignoring warning signs or being willfully blind. The next morning, he made a call to Leo Voss, an old friend from his early days before success, when Nathaniel had run with a rougher crowd. Leo had cleaned up, become a private investigator, but he still understood that some problems required unconventional solutions. I need information, Nathaniel said. Discretion is critical. For you, Nate? Always. What are we looking at? Surveillance. Evidence gathering. Background deep dive. Nathaniel's voice remained steady. I need to know who my wife is seeing. Leo whistled softly. You sure about this road, Nate? Some doors don't close once opened. I built this life brick by brick, Leo. Nobody takes what's mine without consequences. Later that day, Nathaniel watched Vanessa pick listlessly at her dinner. His daughter had once been Daddy's little girl, following him around job sites with a toy hard hat. Now she barely acknowledged him, her attention perpetually locked on her phone. How's school? He asked. Vanessa looked up, surprised by the direct question. Fine. Professor Davenport says my architecture model shows real promise. That's my girl, Nathaniel said with genuine pride. Want to come by the new site tomorrow? See real architecture in progress. Before Vanessa could answer, Diana interjected. She's helping me with the Christmas gala planning tomorrow. The foundation needs all hands on deck. Christmas was still 3 months away, but the Decker Foundation's annual gala was Diana's pride and joy, and apparently, now a mother-daughter venture that excluded him. The look that passed between Diana and Vanessa spoke volumes. Vanessa shrugged. Maybe another time, Dad. That night, while Diana slept, Nathaniel scrolled through household phone records. Dozens of texts between Diana and an unsaved number. Calls it odd hours. In the darkness of his study, Nathaniel felt the rekindling of something he'd suppressed for decades. The cold rage that had once made him feared in his youth before he'd channeled that energy into empire building. He texted Leo, "Need results faster. Whatever it costs." The reply came immediately, on it. "But Nate, remember who you are now, not who you were." Nathaniel stared at the message. Leo didn't understand. The man he'd become, successful, respected, controlled, was just a more refined version of who he'd always been. Someone who never forgot and never forgave. Chapter 2. Fractured Glass. Leo's preliminary report arrived a week later via encrypted file. The photographs showed Diana entering the Woodlands Hotel, her hand casually linked with a man whose face remained partially obscured. Roy Blackwell, his business partner, his friend. Nathaniel studied the timestamp. 2:17 p.m. on a Thursday when both should have been at work. Diana's wedding ring gleamed on her finger in the sunlight, a circle of broken promises. The betrayal was elegant in its simplicity. While he stayed late at the office, Roy had been leaving early. While Nathaniel focused on the business they'd built together, Roy focused on taking everything else. Nathaniel closed the file and called his assistant. "Cancel my afternoon, and give me everything we have on the Westlake project. All of Roy's projections, all the investor documentation." If Roy was betraying him personally, Nathaniel would find his professional vulnerabilities too. Nobody became his enemy without total war. That evening, he sat through another silent dinner, watching Diana text under the table while describing a charity auction she was organizing. Watching Vanessa glance nervously between them, clearly sensing the tension but misattributing its cause. "I'm thinking of taking a step back from some projects," Nathaniel announced. "Spending more time at home." Diana nearly choked on her wine. "That's unexpected. Why the sudden change?" "Family should be a priority," he said mildly, studying her reaction. "Don't you think?" "Of course," Diana recovered quickly. "We'd love having you around more. Wouldn't we, Vanessa?" Their daughter looked up from her phone, confused by being drawn into the conversation. "Sure. I guess." Later, he overheard Diana on the phone in her art studio, voice lowered. "He suspects something. No proof, just he's acting differently. We need to be more careful." Nathaniel retreated silently to his office. The following day, he had Leo plant listening devices in Diana's car, in her studio, and in Roy's office. He needed evidence, not just of the affair, but of their plans, their conversations about him. Betrayal was rarely simple. It was a tapestry of lies, and he intended to unravel each thread. He began speaking with the company's legal team about restructuring options, carefully examining the partnership agreement he'd signed with Roy years earlier. He contacted old clients and suppliers, strengthening relationships that had been primarily maintained by Roy. The foundations for countermeasures were being laid, brick by careful brick. Meanwhile, Vanessa grew increasingly hostile. Dinner conversations were punctuated by her sighs and eye rolls whenever Nathaniel spoke. After one particularly tense meal, he confronted her in the kitchen. "Something you want to say to me directly, instead of these theatrics?" Vanessa slammed her glass down. "Maybe I'm tired of watching you treat Mom like she's your employee instead of your wife." "And what exactly does that mean?" "It means you're never here. It means all you care about is your precious company while Mom handles everything else. Do you even know what she does all day? Do you know what I'm studying beyond something with buildings?" "Architecture with a minor in urban planning," Nathaniel replied evenly. "You're in your sophomore year, carrying a 3.8 GPA, and your advisor is Professor Malcolm Davenport, who's overseeing your scholarship project on sustainable community design." Vanessa blinked, thrown off balance. "I pay attention to what matters, Vanessa. More than you might think." "Then why aren't you ever around? Why does Mom always look so unhappy?" Vanessa's anger had crumpled into confusion. "Ask her about Roy," Nathaniel said quietly. "Ask her about all those late book club meetings." He walked away, leaving Vanessa stunned in the kitchen. It was a calculated risk, using his daughter as an unwitting investigator. But she deserved to know what kind of mother she was defending so vigorously. That night, the surveillance audio delivered results. Vanessa confronting Diana in her studio, Diana's initial denials, then the tearful confession when pushed. "It's complicated, honey. Your father and we've been living separate lives for years. He has his work. I found something else. Someone who really sees me. Dad's partner? Are you serious? How could you do this to our family? Roy understands me in ways your father never has. We connect intellectually, emotionally. Does Dad know?" A pause. "I think he's suspicious, but he's so wrapped up in his business, he barely notices what's happening under his own roof." "So what happens now?" Vanessa's voice was small. "I don't know, but Christmas is coming. Decisions will need to be made." Nathaniel switched off the recording. In his youth, before he'd built his legitimate empire, he'd broken a man's fingers for stealing from a job site. He'd left another with cracked ribs for disrespecting his mother. That capacity for violence had never disappeared. He'd simply channeled it into business aggression, into controlled ruthlessness that scared competitors but stayed within legal boundaries. Now, he felt that old violence stirring again. But this time, fists wouldn't be enough. This required a more sophisticated destruction. The next morning, Nathaniel arrived at the office early and accessed Roy's computer while the building was empty. The password, Diana's birthday, was pathetically easy to guess. What he found confirmed his suspicions. Roy and Diana had been together for nearly a year. Emails, calendar entries for meetings at hotels, even a folder of photos too intimate for Nathaniel to examine fully. But there was something else. Files on company projects with adjustments to numbers. Proposals Roy was developing to approach investors behind Nathaniel's back, suggesting a restructuring that would push Nathaniel into a figurehead role. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning a coup, professional and personal. Nathaniel copied everything to a secure drive, restored Roy's computer to its original state, and left. Outside, the autumn air was crisp with promise. Winter was coming, bringing Christmas and the annual Decker Foundation Gala. The perfect stage for what he now planned. Chapter 3. Shattered Illusions. "We need to talk about Christmas," Diana said, 3 weeks later. The tension in the house had been building, a pressure system of unspoken accusations and plans. She sat across from him in his study, elegant in a cashmere sweater he didn't recognize. Another gift from Roy, perhaps. "What about it?" Nathaniel didn't look up from his papers. "I think we need space to figure things out." She twisted her wedding ring. "Maybe you should visit your brother in Colorado for the holidays." Nathaniel finally met her eyes. "You want me to leave my own home for Christmas? It will be easier for everyone." She looked away. "Vanessa agrees." The confirmation stung more than he'd expected. His own daughter, choosing sides. "You've discussed this with her?" "She's an adult, Nate. She sees what's happening between us." "Does she? Does she see everything, Diana?" Diana stiffened almost imperceptibly. She sees a workaholic father who's never been present and a mother who's trying to salvage some happiness. Nathaniel leaned back, studying the stranger his wife had become. "And Roy? What does he see?" The color drained from Diana's face. "I don't know what you are." "Don't." His voice cut like steel. "You've lost the privilege of lying to me. You and Roy can keep your little secrets for now. But don't insult my intelligence." Diana recovered quickly, her shock transforming into cold defiance. "Fine. Yes, Roy and I have become close. He listens. He's present. He makes me feel valued, while collecting a partnership share of a company I built. How convenient for him. This isn't about money." Diana stood, suddenly angry. "This is about 20 years of emotional neglect. About building a life with someone who treats his family like another business asset." Nathaniel remained seated, unmoved by her performance. "If you want to leave, leave. The door has always been open. And give you the satisfaction of being the abandoned husband? Let you keep everything while I start over at 47. Diana laughed bitterly. "I've invested my life in building yours, Nate. I deserve better than walking away with nothing." There it was, the truth beneath the justifications. Diana wasn't leaving because she wouldn't get enough. She was staying to take more. "So Christmas?" he asked quietly. "Don't come for Christmas," Diana said coldly. "It's better for everyone if you're not here." Later that evening, Vanessa cornered him in the kitchen. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her posture defensive. "Mom told me you know about Roy." Nathaniel nodded, pouring himself a whiskey. "And you knew before I did." "I just found out when." She stopped, the lie half-formed. "When you confronted her after our conversation," Nathaniel finished. "I heard the recording, Vanessa." Her eyes widened. "You're spying on us?" "In our own home. I'm gathering information about people conspiring against me." "Location is irrelevant." Vanessa shook her head in disgust. "This is why Mom wants someone else. You treat everything like a military operation. No emotion, just strategy." "Emotion is luxury for people who can afford to be weak." Nathaniel took a sip of whiskey. "Your mother made choices. So did Roy. Actions have consequences." "God, listen to yourself. This isn't one of your business deals. This is our family." "Family doesn't betray each other, Vanessa. A lesson you seem to have missed." Her laugh was harsh, reminiscent of her mother's earlier. "We'll pretend we don't know you," Vanessa said with cruel glee. "That's what Christmas will be like. A fresh start without your shadow over everything. Roy's even talking about taking us to Europe next summer, a real family vacation." The calculated cruelty, using his own money, his own success to fund their new life without him, might have broken a lesser man. Nathaniel simply nodded. "I'll make arrangements to be gone by next week." "You're giving up just like that?" Vanessa seemed almost disappointed. The great Nathaniel Decker, walking away without a fight. "I never said anything about not fighting," Nathaniel replied calmly. "I said I'd be gone. Those are different things." Vanessa stormed out, slamming the door with teenage dramatics that belied her age. Nathaniel finished his whiskey and made a call. "Leo, accelerate everything. I need the full package in 48 hours. "That's pushing it, Nate. We're still compiling the offshore accounts in 2 days, Leo. Then we move." Nathaniel stayed away from the house for the next week, renting a penthouse downtown and working remotely. To Diana and Vanessa, it looked like surrender. To Roy, whose expression held poorly disguised triumph during their brief interactions at the office, it looked like victory. Let them believe what they needed to. The best traps were the ones where the prey walked in willingly. The annual Decker Foundation Christmas Gala was scheduled for December 15th at the Heathman Hotel. 500 guests, Portland's elite business community, charity donors, and local politicians would attend. Diana had been planning it for months, her crowning social achievement each year. Nathaniel had Leo compile guest profiles on every attendee, identifying allies and potential leverage points. He made strategic donations to key politicians' campaigns. He had quiet meetings with the 3 most influential board members of their largest competitor, who had been eyeing Decker Construction's market share for years. Meanwhile, he emptied joint accounts, secured his most valuable assets, and worked with overseas connections to create financial shelters Diana's lawyers would never penetrate. Everything was methodical, layered, and designed to leave them with exactly what they deserved: nothing. 2 days before the gala, Nathaniel met with his personal attorney, Sylvia Montgomery, to finalize divorce papers that would blindside Diana with their thoroughness. The prenuptial agreement from 22 years earlier had been airtight, but Nathaniel's preparations went beyond legal precautions. "This is scorched earth, Nate," Sylvia warned, reviewing the documents. "No judge will grant all these terms. They don't need to. This is just the opening salvo. It establishes my position for what comes next." "And what exactly comes next?" Sylvia asked, concern evident in her voice. Nathaniel smiled without warmth. "Justice, Sylvia. Nothing more, nothing less." The night before the gala, Nathaniel received a text from a blocked number. "Roy, using a burner phone. We should talk before things get messy. Coffee tomorrow. The Porter, 10 a.m. Nathaniel replied simply, "I'll be there." The Porter was a discreet hotel bar downtown, quiet in the mornings. Nathaniel arrived 15 minutes early, selecting a corner table with a view of the entrance. Roy arrived precisely at 10, wearing a charcoal suit and the confident expression of a man who believed he held the upper hand. "Nate, thanks for coming." Roy slid into the seat across from him. "I think we both know this conversation is overdue." "Enlighten me," Nathaniel said, his voice neutral. "Diana and it wasn't planned. These things happen. But now decisions need to be made professionally and personally. And you've made yours." Roy nodded, attempted a sympathetic expression that came across as condescending. "Diana's unhappy, Nate. Has been for years. You must have seen it. And the company needs fresh direction. Investors are concerned about your increasingly traditional approach. So you'll rescue my wife and my company in one heroic gesture." "Efficient," Roy sighed, leaning forward. "We can do this amicably. Diana gets a fair settlement. You and I transition to a respectful business separation over 6 months. No public drama, no reputation damage. Everyone moves forward with dignity." Nathaniel studied Roy's face, the face of a man he'd trusted for 15 years. Behind the practiced concern, he saw only calculation. "Did you rehearse that speech with Diana, or was that all you?" Nathaniel asked mildly. Roy's expression tightened. "This isn't a joke, Nate. These are the realities we're facing." "Reality," Nathaniel repeated thoughtfully. "Here's my reality, Roy. I built that company from nothing while you were still getting coffee for investment bankers at Morgan Stanley. I invited you in, mentored you, made you wealthy beyond your mediocre talents. I handed you connections it took me decades to build. And I've grown those connections. I brought in half our current clients, using my reputation, my history of delivering results." Nathaniel leaned forward slightly. "And now you're sleeping with my wife, plotting with my daughter, and attempting to push me out of my own company. That's my reality." Roy had the decency to look uncomfortable. "It's more complicated than." "It's exactly that simple," Nathaniel cut him off. "But here's what you've forgotten, Roy. I wasn't born into success. I clawed my way up, and I've faced far worse enemies than an ungrateful partner with delusions of adequacy." "Is that a threat?" Roy's voice hardened. "It's a history lesson." Nathaniel stood, tossing cash on the table for his untouched coffee. "I'll see you at the gala tomorrow night. We can continue this conversation there, with all our cards on the table." As he walked away, Nathaniel could feel Roy's eyes on him, no longer confident but wary. Good. Fear was the beginning of wisdom. That afternoon, a courier delivered a package to Nathaniel's penthouse. Inside was a silver-framed family photo from years earlier, Nathaniel, Diana, and a teenage Vanessa at the Grand Canyon. The frame was wrapped with ribbon, with a note in Vanessa's handwriting, still trying to decide what to do with old memories. Maybe burn them after Christmas? The petty cruelty was Diana's influence, Nathaniel was certain. Vanessa had always been more direct in her anger, less calculated. Now she was becoming her mother's daughter completely, learning lessons that would ultimately damage her far more than him. He placed the photo on his desk and made the final preparations for the gala. Everything was in place. The stage was set. Tomorrow night, the collapse would begin. Chapter 4: Shards of Truth. The Heathman Hotel ballroom sparkled with Christmas elegance, crystal chandeliers, evergreen garlands, and the subtle ostentation of old Portland money trying to outshine new tech wealth. By 9 o'clock, the Decker Foundation Christmas Gala was in full swing, champagne flowing as freely as charitable donations. Nathaniel arrived fashionably late, turning heads in a custom tuxedo. He hadn't been expected. Diana had told everyone he was traveling on business, and his presence created an immediate ripple of whispers through the crowd. "Nathaniel." Commissioner Harriet Palmer approached first, champagne flute in hand. "Diana said you couldn't make it. What a wonderful surprise. I wouldn't miss our foundation's signature event, Harriet." His smile was warm, practiced, especially with the Riverfront Project announcement coming up. Diana spotted him from across the room, her expression shifting from shock to barely controlled fury. She wore a burgundy gown that accentuated her figure, her hair elegantly swept up, diamonds at her throat that Nathaniel recognized as his gift from their 20th anniversary. Before she could intercept him, Nathaniel moved purposefully through the crowd, shaking hands, having brief conversations with key business associates and politicians. Everyone who mattered in Portland was here tonight, exactly as he'd planned. Roy appeared at Diana's side, whispering urgently in her ear. Nathaniel watched them from the corner of his eye while discussing highway contracts with the mayor. Their body language screamed panic. Good. Vanessa arrived fashionably late, wearing a black cocktail dress that made her look older than her 19 years. She froze when she saw Nathaniel, then recovered, deliberately turning away to join a group of her mother's friends. The battle lines were clearly drawn. At precisely 9:30, Diana took the stage for her annual speech. She'd always been a natural public speaker, and tonight she shone with practiced charm as she welcomed guests and thanked donors. If any of the attendees noticed her strained smile when acknowledging my husband Nathaniel's continued support, they were too polite to show it. This year's gala benefits Portland's homeless youth initiatives, Diana continued. A cause close to my heart as we consider what family truly means during the holiday season. The irony wasn't lost on Nathaniel. He applauded at appropriate moments, playing the role of supportive husband while observing Roy's increasing discomfort near the bar. His business partner had loosened his bow tie, was on his third scotch, eyes darting between Diana and Nathaniel. After the speech, as the band resumed playing, Nathaniel approached his wife. Lovely words, Diana. Very moving. What are you doing here? She hissed through a smile. We had an agreement. Did we? I thought you had demands. Not quite the same thing. Before she could respond, Vanessa appeared at her mother's side. Dad, surprised you could tear yourself away from work for a family event. Family is everything to me, Vanessa. Something I've apparently failed to communicate effectively. His tone was mild, but his eyes were cold. I see you're wearing the necklace I gave you for graduation. Vanessa's hand went reflexively to the delicate gold pendant. It matches my dress. It was my mother's. The only thing of value she had left after my father died. Nathaniel smiled thinly. She wanted you to have it, because family heirlooms should stay with people who understand loyalty. Vanessa's expression faltered. Diana stepped between them. This isn't the time or place, Nate. On the contrary, Nathaniel checked his watch. This is exactly the right time and place. If you'll excuse me, I believe it's time for my contribution announcement. He walked to the stage before they could stop him, taking the microphone with the easy confidence of a man used to commanding attention. Good evening, everyone. For those I haven't had the chance to speak with yet, I'm Nathaniel Decker. My wife Diana has done a magnificent job organizing tonight's event, as she does every year. Polite applause followed as Diana watched with thinly veiled apprehension from the floor. The Decker Foundation has always supported causes that strengthen our community, particularly those involving children and families. Nathaniel paused, surveying the room. Tonight, I'm announcing a personal contribution of $5 million to establish the Nathaniel Decker Truth and Loyalty Scholarship Fund for Disadvantaged Youth. The crowd murmured in appreciation. $5 million was far more than their usual contributions. This fund will operate independently from the Decker Foundation, under my personal direction. Nathaniel's gaze found Diana's. Recent events have reminded me how important it is to safeguard one's legacy and ensure it isn't compromised by others. Roy was moving toward the stage now, recognizing the thinly veiled shot. Additionally, Nathaniel continued, I'm announcing a significant professional development. After 15 years of partnership, Roy Blackwell will be transitioning out of Decker Construction, effective immediately. The room went silent. Roy froze mid-step. Roy has decided to pursue other interests. Nathaniel smiled coldly. I'm sure many of you will join me in wishing him well in his future endeavors, whatever those might be, though I recommend extreme caution in any financial entanglements. Diana was pushing through the crowd now, panic evident in her movements. As for Decker Construction, we're entering an exciting new phase. I've signed a merger agreement with Westlake Developers, combining our operations under my continued leadership. The paperwork was finalized this afternoon. Gasps and whispers rippled through the room. Westlake was their largest competitor. The merger would create the dominant construction firm in the Pacific Northwest and completely blindside Roy, who had been negotiating with several of their clients behind Nathaniel's back. I won't take more of your time, Nathaniel concluded smoothly. Please enjoy the evening, continue giving generously, and remember that appearances can be deceiving, even with those closest to you. Thank you. He stepped down from the stage as chaos erupted in whispered conversations across the ballroom. Diana reached him first, gripping his arm with trembling fingers. What the hell do you think you're doing? She hissed. Protecting what's mine, Nathaniel replied calmly. You should have remembered who you were dealing with, Diana. Roy pushed through the crowd, face flushed with anger and humiliation. You can't force me out. We have a contract, which you breached in paragraph 17.3 when you approached Meridian investors without board approval, Nathaniel countered quietly. And again in paragraph 29.8 when you misrepresented construction timelines to the lakeside developers. I have the documentation, Roy. All of it. Roy paled visibly. Those were preliminary discussions, not. Save it for the lawyers, Nathaniel cut him off. They'll have their hands full with the audit that's currently examining all your financial activities within the company for the past 3 years. Vanessa appeared beside her mother, confusion evident on her face. What's happening? Mom. Diana's composure was cracking. Your father is having some kind of breakdown. Creating drama, To what, Diana? Nathaniel interjected. To expose the truth? That seems like something worth doing, don't you think? Other guests were watching now, pretending not to listen while absorbing every word of the unfolding drama. This isn't over, Roy growled, stepping closer. Oh, it's over for you, Nathaniel replied, voice dangerously soft. But you're right that we're just getting started. There's still the matter of the Cayman accounts. Roy froze, color draining from his face. Did you really think I wouldn't find them? Nathaniel shook his head in mock disappointment. 300,000 siphoned through inflated subcontractor invoices. Not very original, Roy. I expected better from you. You have no proof, Roy whispered. Nathaniel smiled thinly. I have everything, including your emails discussing how to structure the transactions to avoid detection. But we can discuss the details with the authorities. I believe wire fraud carries substantial prison time these days. Diana stepped between them, her voice a controlled hiss. Stop this now, Nate. People are watching. Let them watch, Nathaniel replied. Transparency is cleansing. Speaking of which, I've taken the liberty of having your belongings moved to Roy's condo, Diana. The locks at our home have been changed. You can't do that, Diana gasped. I already have. The divorce papers will be delivered tomorrow morning. Given the circumstances and the prenuptial agreement you signed, I think you'll find the terms comprehensive. Vanessa looked between them, her confident facade crumbling. Divorce? But what about? You're welcome to join your mother at Roy's place, Nathaniel told his daughter coldly, though you might find it crowded. The audit has frozen his assets, and I imagine the bank will be foreclosing on the condo once his fraud is fully documented. The ballroom had gone quiet, the band faltering as the drama unfolded. Hundreds of Portland's elite were witnessing the implosion of what had appeared to be a perfect family and business partnership. You've lost your mind, Diana whispered, tears threatening to spill. This vendetta will destroy everything. No, Diana. You and Roy destroyed everything when you betrayed me. Nathaniel straightened his tie. I'm simply ensuring you experience the appropriate consequences. He turned to the stunned crowd, raising his voice slightly. Please, everyone, don't let our family matters interrupt the celebration. The orchestra will continue, and I believe dinner is about to be served. Enjoy your evening. With that, Nathaniel walked calmly toward the exit, leaving devastation in his wake. As he reached the door, he heard Roy's voice, desperate now. Nate, wait, we need to talk about this. Nathaniel didn't turn around. He had said everything that needed saying. The first act of his revenge was complete. Public humiliation and professional destruction. The financial ruin would follow in the coming days. And then the personal reckonings. Outside in the cold December air, Nathaniel texted Leo. Phase 1 complete. Start Phase 2 immediately. Leo's reply came seconds later, already in motion. The photo arrives at midnight. Nathaniel smiled as he slid into the back of his waiting car. A photo, one specific photo from his past, that would shatter whatever plans Roy and Diana might try to salvage from tonight's wreckage. The residence hotel, he instructed his driver. He had prepared a suite there for the duration of what was to come. From that command center, he would orchestrate the complete dismantling of those who had betrayed him. By morning, Portland's business community would be buzzing with tonight's drama. By next week, Roy would be under investigation. By Christmas, everything Diana had valued, social standing, financial security, future prospects, would be in ashes, and Nathaniel would watch it burn without remorse. He had warned them, after all. Actions had consequences. Always. Chapter 5. Broken Reflections. The morning after the gala, Nathaniel sat in his hotel suite reviewing media coverage. The society page delicately referenced unexpected announcements and visible tensions at the Decker Foundation event. Business reporters were more direct, analyzing the surprise merger announcement and Roy's abrupt departure as a power move signaling Decker Construction's aggressive new direction. His phone had been ringing constantly. Board members, business associates, lawyers. He answered selectively, projecting calm control while revealing nothing beyond the official statements his PR team had prepared. At precisely 9 a.m., Sylvia Montgomery arrived with updates. The divorce filing has been submitted, she reported, arranging documents on the suite's dining table. Diana was served at Roy's condo an hour ago. Her expression was memorable, according to our courier. And the restraining orders? In place. Diana cannot access any of the joint accounts, safe deposit boxes, or properties. The judge granted the temporary freeze based on the evidence of financial impropriety we submitted. Nathaniel nodded, satisfied. What about Roy? The forensic accounting team entered the Decker Construction offices at dawn. They've secured all files and locked down the systems. Roy tried to access the building at 7:30, but was denied entry by security. He's retained Wilson Hargrove as counsel. Predictable, Nathaniel murmured. Wilson was competent but unimaginative, exactly the kind of attorney Roy would choose. Any word for Vanessa? Sylvia hesitated. She's made several attempts to access your personal accounts. The banking alerts show 3 tries with incorrect passwords on your investment portfolio. The betrayal stung anew. His own daughter, attempting to raid his finances before the dust had even settled. Activate the secondary security protocols, Nathaniel instructed, and have Leo track her movements. I want to know who she's talking to, where she's going. Nate? Sylvia's voice softened. She's your daughter. Maybe there's room for reconciliation there, even if. She made her choice, Nathaniel cut her off. She chose Diana and Roy over loyalty to her father. There's no middle ground, no reconciliation. Only consequences. Sylvia didn't argue further. She'd known Nathaniel long enough to recognize when his mind was set. What about the photo Leo mentioned? The one being delivered to Roy? Nathaniel checked his watch. It should have arrived at midnight. We'll know soon enough if it had the desired effect. The photo was from 25 years earlier. Nathaniel, much younger, standing over a bloodied man in an alley behind a bar in North Portland. Few people knew about Nathaniel's rougher beginnings, the lengths he'd gone to establish himself when he was first starting out. That particular altercation had been with a contractor who'd attempted to cheat him on his first major project. The man had recovered physically, but never crossed Nathaniel again. What made the photo powerful wasn't just the violence it captured, but who had taken it. Maxwell Harmon, now a federal judge with jurisdiction over white-collar crime cases in Oregon. Back then, Max had been Nathaniel's friend, watching his back during his climb up from nothing. Their paths had diverged professionally, but the connection remained, a brotherhood forged in harder times. If Roy saw that photo, he would recognize Judge Harmon immediately. He would understand that any legal challenges to Nathaniel would ultimately land before a judge with his own secrets to protect, a judge who owed Nathaniel his career. At 10:17 a.m., Leo called. Package was delivered as planned, he reported. Surveillance shows Roy opened it at 12:43 a.m. Diana was present. The reaction was significant. Details Nathaniel demanded. Roy recognized the implications immediately. There was an argument between them. Diana left the condo at 1:36 a.m. with an overnight bag. She checked into the downtown Marriott alone. And this morning, Roy made 3 calls to Judge Harmon's office, all unanswered. He then spent 40 minutes on the phone with Wilson Hargrove. From what we could gather, he's reconsidering his legal strategy. Perfect. Nathaniel allowed himself a small smile. What about Vanessa? She spent the night at her friend Tara's apartment. She's been making calls to Diana all morning, but her mother isn't answering. Her last attempt was a text message saying, "Dad planned this all along." We played right into it. At least his daughter was perceptive, Nathaniel thought. Too late to save herself, but perceptive nonetheless. Stay on them, he instructed Leo. I want to know every move, every conversation. The next 3 days unfolded according to Nathaniel's meticulous plan. The forensic accountants uncovered the full extent of Roy's embezzlement. Not just the Cayman accounts, but a pattern of skimming from project budgets dating back nearly 2 years. The district attorney's office, headed by another old connection of Nathaniel's, opened a formal investigation. Diana's attorney, an aggressive divorce specialist named Martina Reyes, filed emergency motions challenging the prenuptial agreement and seeking temporary support. Judge Carlton Weathers, who owed his appointment to political connections Nathaniel had cultivated, denied the motions pending full financial disclosure. Vanessa had withdrawn from classes at Portland State, her scholarship now in jeopardy since it was funded through Decker Construction. She'd moved into the Marriott with Diana, both women suddenly confronting a future without access to Nathaniel's wealth. By the 4th day, cracks were appearing in the unity between the betrayers. Leo's surveillance captured an explosive argument between Roy and Diana in the hotel parking garage. "You said he would fold," Diana screamed, heedless of potential observers. "You said he was all bluff, that he'd never risk public scandal. How was I supposed to know he'd go nuclear?" Roy shouted back. "You're his wife. You were supposed to understand how he'd react." "Ex-wife soon," Diana spat. "And thanks to your brilliant planning, I'll be lucky to get anything in the settlement. Do you have any idea what my lawyer's retainer alone cost? Money I don't have anymore because everything's frozen. At least you're not facing prison time." Roy's voice broke with stress. "The DA is talking about pressing charges, all because you couldn't wait until after the divorce to start something public." The blame game had begun, exactly as Nathaniel had predicted. Under pressure, their alliance was fracturing. Roy and Diana had believed themselves clever enough to outmaneuver him, not understanding that he had been planning for betrayal since the first suspicious late-night book club meeting. On the 5th day, everything changed. Nathaniel was reviewing merger documents in his hotel suite when Leo called, his voice tight with urgency. "Vanessa went to see Judge Harmon." Nathaniel sat up straighter. "When?" "This morning, 8:45 a.m. She was in his chambers for nearly an hour. Audio? None. His office is swept regularly for devices. But she left looking determined. Went straight to the Marriott, packed her things, and checked out. She's not answering Diana's calls. This was an unexpected development. Vanessa going rogue from Diana's influence could complicate matters. Where is she now? That's the other thing. Leo hesitated. She's in the lobby of your hotel. Has been for 20 minutes. Looks like she's waiting for you. Nathaniel considered his options. Confronting Vanessa hadn't been part of today's plan, but adaptability was essential in any strategic campaign. Send her up. Minutes later, Vanessa stood in his suite doorway, eyes red-rimmed, but chin lifted in defiance. She looked younger somehow, more like the daughter he remembered from before the estrangement began. "You're going to destroy them," she said without preamble. "It's not enough for you to win. You want them ruined." Nathaniel gestured for her to enter. "Those aren't mutually exclusive concepts." Vanessa stepped inside, but remained standing. "I saw Judge Harmon this morning. I'm aware." "Of course you are," she laughed bitterly. "You're aware of everything, aren't you? Have you been watching me this whole time? Since before Christmas? Before Mom and Roy?" "Protecting what's mine requires vigilance," Nathaniel replied evenly. "What did Maxwell have to say?" "He told me everything. About your past. About how you started with nothing and did whatever it took to build your empire. About the things you've done that the public Nathaniel Decker would never acknowledge." Max always was prone to nostalgia. Nathaniel poured himself a whiskey. Did he tell you he was there for most of it? That his judicial career exists because I funded his first campaign. He told me enough to understand what you're capable of. Vanessa's voice wavered slightly. And that Roy and Mom never stood a chance. That none of us did. Everyone has choices, Vanessa. Diana chose to betray our marriage. Roy chose to betray our partnership. You chose to side with them against me. Those were your decisions. I was manipulated. Vanessa cried. Mom fed me lies about you for months. She told me you were having affairs, that you were planning to leave her with nothing, that the only way to protect ourselves was to align with Roy. Nathaniel studied his daughter's face, searching for deception. He found only desperation and fear. And you believed her without question, without coming to me. I was wrong, Vanessa admitted, tears threatening. But does that mean I deserve to lose everything too? My education, my future, my father. For a moment, looking at his daughter, Nathaniel felt the first flicker of doubt about his scorched earth approach. Vanessa had been manipulated, certainly. She was young, impressionable, loyal to the mother who had been her primary caregiver, while Nathaniel built the business that supported them all. Then he remembered her cruel words. We'll pretend we don't know you, she had laughed. The calculated delivery of the family photo with its threatening note about burning memories. The attempts to access his accounts after the gala. Actions have consequences, he said finally. That's the most important lesson I can teach you. Vanessa stared at him, hope draining from her expression. So that's it? I'm collateral damage in your war against Mom and Roy. What exactly did you expect coming here today? Forgiveness? A blank check? Your scholarship reinstated while I continued dismantling the lives of the people you chose to align with. I expected a father, Vanessa shouted. Someone who could separate his daughter's misguided loyalty from actual betrayal. Someone who could show mercy to his own child, even while destroying his enemies. Nathaniel set down his glass. Here's what I can offer. A one-way ticket to your grandfather's farm in Minnesota. He'll take you in. You can finish your education at the state university there. I'll arrange transfer of credits. You'll receive a modest monthly allowance for essentials, nothing more. No access to family assets. No connection to the Decker name professionally or financially. Exile, Vanessa whispered. Distance, Nathaniel corrected. From Diana, from Roy, from Portland, and from me. Time to decide who you want to be without their influence or mine. And if I refuse, then you remain aligned with them, sharing whatever fate awaits them. Nathaniel's voice hardened, which, I assure you, will not include comfort or prosperity. Vanessa stood silently, tears tracking down her cheeks. Finally, she nodded. When do I leave? Tonight. Leo will arrange everything. Pack only what you personally own, nothing purchased with family funds. That's hardly anything, she said bitterly. Then you'll travel light. Nathaniel turned away, signaling the end of the conversation. Leo will contact you with details. After she left, Nathaniel poured another whiskey and stood at the window overlooking Portland's skyline. The empire he'd built spread before him. Construction projects bearing the Decker name, transforming the city's profile. All of it created through determination, strategic ruthlessness, and an unwavering commitment to protecting what was his. Diana had forgotten that family was also something he considered his. She tried to take it, to reshape it without him, to turn his daughter against him. That required a response beyond mere divorce. His phone chimed with a text from Leo. V has returned to Marriott. Packing is instructed. Flight to Minneapolis arranged for 8:45 p.m. One problem addressed. Now for the remaining players in this drama. It was time for Phase 3, the complete dismantling of Roy Blackwell's future. And for Diana to understand exactly what she had sacrificed in her quest for happiness with a man who would crumble under pressure. 5 days after the gala, everything had indeed changed. The battle lines had been redrawn. Vanessa was neutralized. Diana was isolated. Roy was cornered. And Nathaniel was just getting started. Chapter 6, Fatal Recognition. The Minneapolis flight departed on schedule with Vanessa aboard. Leo confirmed she'd been met at the airport by Nathaniel's father-in-law, Thomas Reeves, a taciturn farmer who had never approved of Diana's metropolitan pretensions, but had always shown gruff affection for his granddaughter. With Vanessa removed from the immediate battlefield, Nathaniel focused his attention on the remaining targets. Roy's legal situation was deteriorating rapidly. The district attorney had moved from investigation to preparation of formal charges: wire fraud, embezzlement, falsification of corporate records. The evidence was overwhelming, much of it painstakingly documented by Nathaniel over months of quiet observation. Diana, meanwhile, was growing desperate. Frozen out of all accounts and properties, her credit cards canceled, she was existing on emergency funds provided by her increasingly reluctant attorney. The Marriott had demanded advance payment for continued accommodation. Her social circle, witnessing her spectacular fall, had begun the inevitable distancing that accompanied scandal among Portland's elite. On the sixth day after the gala, Nathaniel relocated from the hotel to a luxury waterfront apartment he maintained under a holding company name, a property unknown to Diana or Roy. From this new command center, he prepared for the next phase of his strategy. "Diana's tried to contact your brother in Colorado," Leo reported during their morning briefing. "Thomas intercepted the call at your parents' old number. She was looking for leverage, asking about family history, old grudges, anything she could use." Nathaniel smiled thinly. "My brother hasn't spoken to me in 15 years. She's grasping at straws." She's also reached out to 3 former employees who left Decker Construction under less than ideal circumstances, offering to compare notes about your business practices. "Predictable," Nathaniel murmured. "Any takers?" "None so far. They seem more afraid of you than interested in her offers." That fear was well-earned. Nathaniel had never been vindictive toward employees who simply sought better opportunities elsewhere. But those who had attempted to damage his company on their way out had learned hard lessons about his long memory and extensive influence in Portland's business community. "What about Roy? Any movement there?" Leo consulted his tablet. "He met with the DA yesterday. Trying to negotiate a deal, I'm guessing." Left looking shaken. His attorney filed a motion to dismiss the corporate fraud allegations, citing lack of evidence. But Judge Harmon has already denied it. As expected, Nathaniel studied the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Time to accelerate. Have the package delivered to Roy's office today." "You sure about the timing?" "Once this moves forward, it's time, Leo. Make it happen." The package contained documentation of Roy's other indiscretions, not just financial, but personal. Evidence of a second affair with the wife of State Senator Martin Collins, a key member of the infrastructure committee that approved major construction contracts. Photos, text messages, hotel receipts. A comprehensive record of betrayal that would destroy Roy's last hope of professional rehabilitation. Delivering it to Roy's office rather than his condo was deliberate. The humiliation would be public, witnessed by whatever staff remained loyal to him. The destruction of his reputation would be complete. By mid-afternoon, the fallout had begun. Roy called Nathaniel directly, the first direct contact since the gala. "You son of a bitch." Roy's voice trembled with rage. "You've been planning this for months." "All of it." "Longer," Nathaniel replied calmly. "I suspected Diana was unfaithful last spring. I confirmed it was you by summer. Everything since has been strategic response. The Collins material, if this gets out, it won't just be my career. Martin will come after me personally. You know what he's capable of." "I do," Nathaniel agreed. "He's nearly as unforgiving as I am. A useful quality in allies." "What do you want?" Roy's voice had shifted from anger to fear. "There must be something. Money? Public apology? What will it take to keep this contained?" "Nothing you can offer would be sufficient," Nathaniel said coldly. "This isn't negotiation, Roy. It's a reckoning. I'll destroy you." Roy shouted, desperation evident. "I'll go to the press. Tell them everything about how you built your business. The bribes, the intimidation, all of it." "With what evidence?" "Your word." Nathaniel laughed softly. A desperate man facing criminal charges, sleeping with his partner's wife, conducting a second affair with a senator's spouse. Who exactly do you think will believe you? "Diana will back me up. She knows things." "Diana is scrambling to save herself." Nathaniel cut him off. "She's already attempted to contact former employees, looking for dirt. She called my estranged brother this morning. She's meeting with her third attorney this afternoon because the first two dropped her when they realized she can't pay their fees. The silence on the other end confirmed what Nathaniel already knew. The alliance between Roy and Diana was fracturing under pressure, their united front collapsing as self-preservation instincts took over. "It's over, Roy," Nathaniel continued. "The DA will have the Collins material by tomorrow morning, unless you take the original plea deal they offered. 5 to 7 years, full restitution, no possibility of future financial industry employment." "That's my whole life," Roy whispered. "Everything I've built." "Correction, everything you tried to steal," Nathaniel replied without sympathy. "You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow to accept the deal. After that, Senator Collins receives the full documentation of your affair with his wife. I believe Martin still keeps that hunting cabin in eastern Oregon. Very remote. No witnesses for miles." The threat wasn't subtle. Senator Collins had a reputation for handling personal matters outside legal channels. His family had been in timber before politics, with generations of knowledge about how accidents happened in the wilderness. "You're a monster," Roy said finally. "No, Roy. I'm just better at this game than you are." Nathaniel ended the call without further comment. By evening, word came through Leo's contact at the district attorney's office. Roy had accepted the plea deal. He would appear in court the following morning to formalize the arrangement. The Collins material remained contained for now. Nathaniel kept it as insurance against future problems. With Roy effectively neutralized, his attention turned fully to Diana. She had been the instigator, he believed, the one who had seen Roy not just as a lover, but as a weapon against Nathaniel, a tool to leverage a more favorable divorce settlement than the prenuptial agreement would allow. Diana's desperation was growing by the day. Her latest attorney had filed emergency motions for temporary support, claiming financial abuse and duress in the original signing of the prenup. Judge Weathers had scheduled a hearing for the following week, but Nathaniel's legal team was confident the challenge would fail. That evening, Nathaniel received an unexpected visitor. Vanessa had returned from Minnesota, appearing at his apartment without warning. Leo, clearly conflicted, had given her the address. "You shouldn't be here," Nathaniel said, allowing her into the sparsely furnished living room. "Our agreement was clear. I was on the plane when I realized something." Vanessa's voice was steady, her posture determined. "You never asked why her lover recognized your photo. Why everything collapsed when he saw it." Nathaniel stilled. It was true. He had been so focused on the betrayal itself, on planning his response, that he hadn't questioned the specific mechanism that had apparently accelerated their exposure. "I assumed Diana showed him family photos," he said carefully. "That my appearance at the gala was what triggered the collapse she mentioned." Vanessa shook her head. "It wasn't a family photo. It was the same one you sent Roy, the old one, from the alley, with Judge Harmon." The revelation struck Nathaniel like a physical blow. "How do you know about that?" "Because Mom showed it to me months ago. She's had it all along, kept it hidden as insurance against you ever leaving her. When she decided to leave with Roy, she showed it to him as proof they could control you if necessary." "That's impossible," Nathaniel said flatly. "There were only 2 copies of that photo. Judge Harmon had one. I secured the other decades ago. There is a third," Vanessa insisted, "taken by someone else who was there that night. Someone who held on to it all these years until Mom paid them for it." Nathaniel's mind raced through possibilities. Who else had been present that night? Max had taken photos as insurance for both of them. The man Nathaniel had beaten was hardly in a position to be taking pictures. Unless Thomas Klein, he breathed the name of a figure from his past he'd almost forgotten. A small-time hustler who had run with their crowd briefly. He was there, watching from the street. "I don't know who took it," Vanessa admitted. "But Mom used it to convince me you were dangerous, capable of violence. That's why I turned against you. I was afraid." The pieces rearranged themselves in Nathaniel's mind. Diana hadn't just been unfaithful. She'd been preparing for war long before he discovered her affair. The photo was ammunition she'd secured in advance. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked his daughter, suspicion clear in his tone. "Because I realized something else on that plane." Vanessa met his gaze unflinchingly. Mom isn't just leaving you for Roy. She's been planning to destroy you from the beginning. This isn't a simple affair gone wrong. It's something bigger. Explain. When her lover saw your photo, everything collapsed. Vanessa recited the words Diana had used. But Roy already knew who you were, obviously. So who's the lover she was really talking about? The question hung in the air between them. Nathaniel felt the ground shifting beneath his carefully constructed revenge scenario. If Diana had another lover beyond Roy, another player in this drama he hadn't identified. I need proof, he said finally. Check the cabin in Hood River, Vanessa suggested. The one Mom claimed to hate because it was too remote? She's been going there regularly, never with Roy. Always alone, supposedly for art retreats. But her sketches never progress after these trips. The family cabin was a property Nathaniel had purchased years earlier as a potential retirement location. Diana had indeed complained about its isolation, the lack of amenities, the distance for Portland. He'd rarely visited in recent years, leaving it primarily vacant. How do you know she goes there? She took me once about 6 months ago. Said she needed company for the drive. But when we arrived, she made a call, then suddenly claimed we needed to leave because the power was out. We drove back immediately. She was agitated the whole way. The pieces were forming a new pattern, one Nathaniel hadn't anticipated. His revenge had been precisely targeted at Diana and Roy, but if there was another player, perhaps the true architect of his intended destruction. I need to go there, he decided. Tonight. Not alone, Vanessa insisted. If I'm right about this, it's more dangerous than you realize. Nathaniel studied his daughter, searching for deception. He found only determined concern. Why help me now? After everything. Because whatever Mom is involved in, it scared me enough to run back from Minnesota, Vanessa said simply. And because you're still my father. Even when you're terrible at showing it. He made the decision quickly. Get your coat. We leave in 10 minutes. As they drove through the darkness toward Hood River, Nathaniel placed a call to Leo, instructing him to dig deeper into Diana's movements over the past year. Phone records, credit card transactions, anything that might indicate a pattern beyond the affair with Roy. The cabin sat on 3 isolated acres overlooking the Columbia River Gorge, accessible only by a private road winding through dense forest. As they approached, Nathaniel killed the headlights, coasting the final quarter-mile in darkness. No other vehicles, he observed as they parked behind the cabin, hidden from the main road. Maybe they're inside already, Vanessa whispered. Using his key, Nathaniel entered silently through the back door. The cabin was dark, but showed signs of recent occupation. Fresh firewood stacked by the stone fireplace, dishes drying on a rack in the kitchen. Someone's been here, he confirmed, moving cautiously through the main room. Recently, Vanessa followed closely behind him as they checked each room. The cabin appeared empty, yet disturbed in subtle ways. A drawer partially open in the bedroom, a laptop charging cable without its computer on the desk in the study. Dad, look at this. Vanessa pointed to the corkboard hanging in the small office. While mostly empty, it contained a single photograph pinned in the center, Nathaniel shaking hands with Mayor Lewis at the groundbreaking for the Riverfront project. The photo had been published in the Portland Business Journal 3 weeks earlier. His face had been circled in red marker. What the hell? Nathaniel murmured, stepping closer. The sound of a vehicle approaching cut through the silence. Headlights swept across the windows as a car pulled into the front drive. Hide, Nathaniel instructed Vanessa, guiding her toward the bedroom closet. No matter what you hear, stay there until I come for you. Once she was concealed, Nathaniel positioned himself in the shadows of the hallway, with a clear view of the front door. He heard a key in the lock, then the door swung open. Diana entered first, followed by a man Nathaniel didn't recognize, tall, silver-haired, wearing an expensive overcoat. As they stepped into the light of the entryway, the man's face became visible. Recognition hit Nathaniel like a thunderbolt. Victor Hargrove, Wilson Hargrove's father, the former district attorney, now senior partner at the law firm representing Roy. And if Nathaniel's memory served, a man with connections to the development company that had suspiciously outbid Decker Construction on 3 major projects in the past year. Are you sure he doesn't know about this place? Victor was asking Diana, helping her remove her coat. Nathaniel never comes here, Diana assured him. He's too busy destroying Roy to notice anything else right now. Your son says the plea deal is finalized. This morning, Victor confirmed. Roy played his part perfectly, though he doesn't realize it. By accepting responsibility for the financial irregularities, he's created the foundation for what comes next, which is... Diana moved into the kitchen, pouring 2 glasses of wine. The Portland Business Bureau has scheduled an emergency meeting tomorrow to review all current Decker construction contracts in light of the corruption concerns. Your husband's precious riverfront project will be the first casualty. Diana smiled coldly. And with the DA focused on Roy, no one's looking at the real financial manipulations. Exactly. Victor accepted the wine glass. The offshore transfers from Decker's accounts to the shell companies in Panama, all traced back to his personal authorization codes. By the time the forensic accountants untangle it all, the money will be safely distributed among our chosen ventures, and Nathaniel will be facing charges far more serious than anything Roy pled to. And the merger announcement? That complication with Westlake? Victor waved dismissively. A temporary setback. Once Nathaniel's legal troubles begin, Westlake will distance themselves immediately. Their board chairman has already reached out to me about contingency plans. From his hiding place, Nathaniel felt cold fury building as the full extent of the conspiracy unfolded before him. This wasn't just an affair, not just Diana and Roy plotting a favorable divorce. This was a coordinated takedown of his entire empire, orchestrated by Victor Hargrove, using Diana and Roy as pawns. The affair had been genuine. Diana's betrayal with Roy was real, but it was only one component of a much larger scheme. A scheme apparently involving fraudulent financial transfers using his authorization codes, the manipulation of the Portland Business Bureau, and the undermining of the riverfront project that represented the crown jewel of Decker Construction's current portfolio. What about Vanessa? Diana asked, sipping her wine. I'm worried about her running back to Nathaniel. If she tells him about this place... She knows nothing concrete, Victor assured her. And by tomorrow afternoon, it won't matter. Nathaniel will be in custody. Your divorce will proceed under much more favorable circumstances with him facing criminal charges, and your financial future will be secure through our arrangement. And Roy? What happens to him? Victor's expression hardened. He served his purpose. The plea deal ensures he can't testify against us without implicating himself further. He'll do his time, and if he's smart, he'll disappear afterward. The casual dismissal of Roy confirmed what Nathaniel had already suspected. Diana's affair had been calculated, possibly even encouraged by Victor as part of the larger plan. Roy was just another pawn, useful then discarded. What about the judge? Diana asked. Harmon? He and Nathaniel have history. Being addressed, Victor replied, cryptically, let's just say Judge Harmon has received some compelling reasons to recuse himself from any matters involving Decker Construction. Listening from the shadows, Nathaniel silently activated the recording function on his phone. Every word they spoke was now being captured. Evidence of conspiracy, fraud, and corruption at the highest levels of Portland's legal and business community. We should go, Victor was saying. The documents are prepared for tomorrow's filing. Once you sign them, everything is in motion. I just need a moment, Diana replied. I want to check that everything is in order here. As Victor moved toward the door, Diana headed toward the hallway where Nathaniel was concealed. He pressed himself deeper into the shadows, calculating his options. Direct confrontation would alert Victor, potentially compromising the recording he was gathering. But allowing Diana to discover Vanessa in the bedroom would be worse. Making a split-second decision, Nathaniel moved silently into the bedroom and closed the door just as Diana entered the hallway. He heard her footsteps pause, then continue past toward the office at the far end. Vanessa, he whispered urgently, opening the closet door. We need to leave. Now, use the window. The bedroom window opened onto a small side deck with stairs leading to the surrounding forest. Nathaniel guided his daughter through it, following close behind. They circled through the trees to where his car was parked, hidden from view of the cabin. What did you hear? Vanessa asked as they slipped into the vehicle. Enough, Nathaniel replied grimly, starting the engine and pulling away with lights still off. Diana isn't just leaving me for Roy. She's part of a conspiracy to steal my company, frame me for financial crimes, and destroy everything I've built. Who was that man? Victor Hargrove, a power player with grudges against me dating back decades. Nathaniel navigated the dark road carefully. This changes everything. The target isn't just Diana and Roy anymore. As they reached the main highway, Nathaniel called Leo, putting him on speaker. I need everything on Victor Hargrove, he instructed. Financial records, communications with the Portland Business Bureau, connections to Westlake Development, everything. And I need security at all my properties immediately, armed if possible. That's serious? Leo asked. They're moving against me tomorrow, planning to have me arrested for financial crimes they've committed using my authorization codes. Jesus, Leo breathed. How'd they get your codes? Nathaniel glanced at Vanessa, the pieces suddenly connecting. Diana has had access to my home office for years. She could have gathered that information gradually, passed it to Hargrove. Vanessa's expression crumpled. The time she sent me to distract you with questions about school or projects while she was supposedly looking for art supplies in your study. The betrayal cut deeper with each revelation. Not just an affair, not just a divorce play, but a years-long conspiracy to systematically dismantle everything he'd built. We have until morning, Nathaniel told Leo. Get everything you can, and contact Judge Harmon directly. Tell him Hargrove is moving against him too. As they drove back toward Portland, Nathaniel's mind raced with calculations, contingencies, counterattacks. The carefully orchestrated revenge he'd been executing against Diana and Roy now seemed inadequate, almost quaint compared to what he faced. This wasn't just about punishing betrayal anymore. This was war for survival. And Victor Hargrove had made a fatal miscalculation. He'd seen the businessman Nathaniel had become, controlled, strategic, operating within legal boundaries. He'd forgotten the man Nathaniel had been before, the street fighter who had clawed his way up from nothing, who understood that some battles couldn't be won playing by the rules. Glancing at Vanessa in the passenger seat, Nathaniel made a decision. You're going back to Minnesota tonight. This is about to get dangerous. I'm not leaving, she said firmly. Not now. I helped create this mess by turning against you. I'm going to help fix it. Looking at his daughter's determined expression, Nathaniel saw something of himself reflected there, the same stubborn resilience that had carried him through his hardest fights. Okay, he conceded, but you follow my lead. Exactly. No questions, no hesitation. Vanessa nodded. What are you going to do? Nathaniel's expression hardened as Portland's skyline appeared on the horizon. What I should have done from the beginning. Stop fighting the battle they expected and start the war they never saw coming. As they drove through the night, Nathaniel dictated instructions to Leo for immediate action. Financial transfers to secure accounts, security protocols at all properties, evidence preservation, and most importantly, the activation of contingency measures he'd established years earlier for exactly this kind of existential threat. 5 days after the gala, everything had collapsed. But not for Nathaniel. For those who had plotted against him, the real collapse was just beginning. Chapter 7. Sharpened Shards. Dawn broke over Portland with iron-gray skies, threatening snow. Fitting weather for the storm Nathaniel was about to unleash. He had spent the night in a secure location with Vanessa, orchestrating countermeasures against Victor Hargrove's planned attack. Forensic accountants found the trail, Leo reported, spreading documents across the table in the penthouse safe house. Financial transfers using your authorization codes, but the digital fingerprints don't match your usual patterns. The timing coincides with Diana's art retreats at the cabin. She was making the transfers remotely while you were at the office. Where did the money go? Nathaniel asked, studying the transaction records. Panama, initially, then dispersed through a network of shell companies. We've identified 3 that connect back to holding companies associated with Victor Hargrove's family trust. Vanessa, reviewing another set of documents, looked up. Dad, there's something strange here. The Portland Business Bureau emergency meeting was scheduled 3 weeks ago, before Roy's embezzlement was even exposed. Someone knew what was coming. Hargrove planned it all, Nathaniel concluded. The timing, the exposure, everything. Diana and Roy were just the most visible parts of a larger machine. Leo nodded grimly. They needed Decker construction destabilized, your reputation compromised. Makes the financial crimes allegations more believable when they surface. Nathaniel checked his watch, 7:15 a.m. The Bureau meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. The DA would likely move against him by mid-morning, once the evidence of financial fraud was formally presented. Where are we with Judge Harmon? He's received the warning, Leo confirmed. He's implementing his own security measures and has agreed to delay any decisions on cases related to Decker construction pending review of new evidence. And Hargrove's son, Wilson, still representing Roy, unaware of his father's larger play. From what we can tell, Wilson thinks this is just about salvaging Roy's career, not part of a coordinated takedown. Nathaniel made a decision. I want Wilson brought in. Leo and Vanessa both stared at him in surprise. The son? Why? Leo asked. Because Victor's using him too, Nathaniel explained. Wilson has a reputation as an ethical attorney, despite his father's influence. If we show him the recording from the cabin, prove his father is manipulating him and his client, he might flip, Leo nodded slowly. Cut ties with his father to protect his own reputation. Exactly. And a Hargrove turning against Hargrove creates exactly the kind of distraction we need. Vanessa looked skeptical. What makes you think he'll believe you over his father? Because Wilson and I have history he doesn't advertise, Nathaniel revealed. I helped him get into law school when Victor refused to support him pursuing criminal defense instead of corporate law. He knows I keep my word, even with enemies. The plan began taking shape. While Leo arranged a secure meeting with Wilson Hargrove, Nathaniel activated other assets. Loyal employees positioned throughout Decker Construction, financial overrides that would lock down company accounts against external interference, and most importantly, the evidence package he'd been compiling for months. That evidence now included not just Diana and Roy's betrayal, but documentation of Victor Hargrove's systematic campaign against Decker Construction. Lost contracts, regulatory delays, strategic poaching of key employees. What had seemed like business challenges at the time now revealed themselves as coordinated attacks. What about Mom? Vanessa asked quietly. What happens to her in all this? Nathaniel's expression hardened. She made her choice. Multiple times. She's not just Roy's lover. She's Hargrove's willing accomplice in financial fraud, conspiracy, and attempted corporate sabotage. So, she goes to prison? Vanessa's voice wavered slightly. If justice prevails, Nathaniel replied without emotion. But justice is rarely that clean. More likely, she'll cut a deal, testify against Hargrove, avoid the worst consequences. And you're okay with that? After everything, Nathaniel studied his daughter's troubled expression. My focus is protecting what matters. The company, our legacy, our future. Diana stopped being my concern the moment she aligned with my enemies. At 9:30 a.m., Wilson Hargrove arrived at the safe house, escorted by Leo. The young attorney looked confused and wary, his normally confident demeanor shaken by the cloak and dagger summons. Nathaniel, he acknowledged stiffly. This is highly irregular. I'm representing your former partner in ongoing legal proceedings. Any meeting between us should include. Your father is setting you up. Wilson, Nathaniel interrupted, along with your client. You're both pawns in a larger game. Wilson's expression froze. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, Nathaniel pressed. You've sensed something off about this entire situation. Roy's embezzlement was too convenient, too easily documented. The plea deal came together too quickly. The Business Bureau's emergency review was scheduled before anything became public. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Wilson's face before his professional mask reasserted itself. These are serious allegations. Do you have anything beyond conjecture? In response, Nathaniel played the recording from the cabin. Wilson listened, color draining from his face as his father's voice detailed the conspiracy, the manipulation of Roy, the plans to frame Nathaniel using Diana's access to his authorization codes. When the recording ended, Wilson sat in stunned silence. "The DA will be coming for me within hours," Nathaniel said quietly. "Based on fraudulent evidence your father helped create. Roy will serve prison time for his actual crimes, while being unwittingly used to facilitate much larger ones. And you, Victor's ethical son, will have your reputation permanently tainted by association." "Why are you showing me this?" Wilson asked finally. "Because you have a choice to make. Stand with your father and go down with him, or help me stop him and salvage your career and Roy's future." "Roy committed actual crimes," Wilson pointed out. "That doesn't change regardless of my father's schemes." "Yes, but there's a difference between serving 5 years for embezzlement and being permanently blacklisted as part of a criminal conspiracy against a major regional employer," Nathaniel countered. "Your father used Roy. He's using you. And when this falls apart, which it will, he'll sacrifice you both to save himself." Wilson removed his glasses, pinched the bridge of his nose. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Take the recording to District Attorney Conway. Explain that you discovered your father's involvement while representing Roy. Request a meeting with the judge to review the plea agreement in light of new evidence of external manipulation. Position yourself and Roy as victims rather than conspirators." "And what do you get out of this?" "Time," Nathaniel said simply. "The DA focusing on Victor rather than coming after me with fabricated charges. The Business Bureau meeting delayed pending investigation into the real fraud. And the satisfaction of watching Victor Hargrove experience consequences after decades of manipulating Portland's legal system." Wilson replaced his glasses, his expression shifting from shock to calculation. The attorney was emerging from behind the betrayed son. "If I do this, what happens to Diana Decker?" Nathaniel's expression remained impassive. "That depends on choices she makes now. Cooperation with authorities might mitigate her exposure. Continued alignment with your father ensures maximum consequences." After Wilson left, carrying a copy of the recording and documentation of the fraudulent financial transfers, Nathaniel moved to the next phase of his counterstrike. While the legal system began grinding into motion against Victor Hargrove, he needed to neutralize the more immediate threat to Decker Construction. The Portland Business Bureau meeting at 2 p.m. would proceed regardless of the developing legal situation. Bureau Chairman Lawrence Williamson had been firmly in Victor's pocket for years and would push forward with the emergency review of Decker Construction contracts unless forcefully deterred. "I need to attend that meeting," Nathaniel told Leo. "In person. But first, we pay a visit to Lawrence." Lawrence Williamson lived in a colonial-style mansion in the West Hills, not far from Nathaniel's former home with Diana. At 11:15 a.m., Nathaniel's car pulled into the circular driveway. Lawrence's wife answered the door, surprise evident on her face. "Nathaniel, this is unexpected. Lawrence is preparing for a meeting this afternoon." "That's why I'm here, Margaret." Nathaniel smiled cordially. "A matter that can't wait regarding today's agenda." She showed him into Lawrence's home office, where the bureau chairman was reviewing documents. Lawrence looked up, momentary shock quickly masked by professional courtesy. "Nathaniel, this is highly irregular. So, is scheduling an emergency review of my company's contracts without due process or notification?" Nathaniel replied pleasantly, taking a seat without invitation. Lawrence's expression tightened. "The Bureau has concerns in light of recent developments. The integrity of ongoing public projects must be—" "Stop," Nathaniel interrupted. "We've known each other 20 years, Lawrence. Let's not pretend this is about project integrity. This is about Victor Hargrove calling in favors to destabilize Decker Construction while he orchestrates a hostile takeover through fraudulent means." Lawrence blinked rapidly, a nervous tell Nathaniel remembered from countless poker games at charity events. "That's a serious accusation against a respected—" "Victor's being questioned by the DA as we speak," Nathaniel said, checking his watch. "Wilson provided evidence of his father's conspiracy this morning. Financial fraud, corporate sabotage, witness manipulation. By this afternoon, it will be public knowledge." The color drained from Lawrence's face. "I don't know what you're—" "The offshore accounts tracking back to Hargrove Family Trusts. The coordinated attacks on Decker construction projects. The plan frame up using my stolen authorization codes. Nathaniel leaned forward. In your role in scheduling today's emergency review, without proper board notification or documentation. Lawrence swallowed hard. The meeting is properly noticed. 3 board members have signed affidavits stating they received less than the required 72-hour notice, Nathaniel countered. 2 others confirm the documentation package arrived incomplete. You violated Bureau bylaws, Lawrence. At Victor's direction, understanding dawned in Lawrence's eyes, the awareness that he'd aligned himself with the wrong power player. What do you want? He asked finally. Cancel today's meeting. Cite administrative irregularities requiring rescheduling. Issue a public statement confirming all Decker construction contracts remain in good standing pending normal quarterly review procedures. And if I refuse? Nathaniel smiled thinly. Then I'll present evidence at the meeting that you've received over $800,000 in consulting fees from Hargrove-affiliated companies over the past 5 years while serving as bureau chairman. A clear violation of conflict of interest provisions in the city charter. Lawrence's expression crumpled. You can't prove. Offshore transfers are remarkably traceable when you know where to look, Nathaniel replied. Victor was careless with your compensation, Lawrence. Or perhaps he kept the documentation as insurance against exactly this kind of situation. The choice was clear: cooperate with Nathaniel or face public disgrace alongside Victor Hargrove. Lawrence was a survivor above all else. I'll cancel the meeting, he conceded. Issue the statement as requested. Excellent. Nathaniel stood. I knew you'd make the rational decision. As he turned to leave, Lawrence called after him. This won't be the end, Nathaniel. Victor has allies throughout the system, people who owe him favors. So do I, Nathaniel replied calmly. And mine are more afraid of me than his are of him. By noon, the Bureau meeting was officially canceled. By 12:30, breaking news alerts reported that prominent attorney Victor Hargrove was cooperating with authorities investigating financial irregularities involving several Portland development projects. By 1:15, Victor had been formally arrested, charged with conspiracy, wire fraud, and witness tampering. Diana, meanwhile, had gone to ground. Leo's sources reported she'd checked out of the Marriott before dawn, leaving no forwarding information. Her attorney had withdrawn from representing her, citing irreconcilable differences regarding case strategy. Her credit cards showed no activity. Her phone was powered off. She's running, Leo observed when they reconvened at the safe house. Probably warned by Victor before everything collapsed. Where would she go? Vanessa asked, concern evident despite everything. She has a sister in Arizona, Nathaniel recalled. Estranged for years, but blood is blood when you're desperate. Want me to alert authorities there? Leo asked. Nathaniel considered the question. Diana fleeing was both predictable and potentially useful. Her disappearance would be interpreted as consciousness of guilt, reinforcing the narrative that she had been an active participant in Victor's conspiracy rather than an unwitting pawn. Not yet, he decided. Let her run for now. It serves our purposes. With the immediate threats neutralized, Victor in custody, the Bureau meeting canceled, the DA investigating the real conspiracy rather than the fabricated charges against Nathaniel, the focus shifted to rebuilding what had been damaged. The merger with Westlake is in jeopardy, Leo reported. Their board is spooked by the publicity, considering withdrawing from the agreement. I expected that, Nathaniel nodded. Contact Meridian Investments. Tell them Decker Construction is now available for the partnership deal Roy approached them about, but with legitimate terms, transparent structure. Vanessa looked up from her tablet where she'd been monitoring news coverage. You're giving away the deal Roy tried to steal? I'm turning his betrayal into an opportunity, Nathaniel corrected. Meridian has deeper pockets than Westlake, better political connections. They were always the superior partner. Roy just approached them with a corrupt proposal that would have benefited him personally at the company's expense. The strategy was classic Nathaniel, identifying leverage points and redirecting momentum. The failed conspiracy had created openings that would ultimately strengthen his position. The company would emerge more powerful, his control more secure, his reputation as someone not to be crossed even more firmly established. As evening approached, Nathaniel received a call from Wilson Hargrove. "My father is looking at serious time," Wilson reported, his voice tight with controlled emotion. The evidence was overwhelming once authorities knew where to look. "He's attempting to negotiate a deal, but the DA isn't feeling generous." And Roy, "The judge has agreed to review his plea agreement in light of evidence he was manipulated by my father. His sentence will still involve prison time, but potentially reduced based on cooperation." "Fair enough," Nathaniel acknowledged. "He's guilty of his own crimes, regardless of Victor's larger scheme." "There's something else," Wilson added. "Diana Decker contacted me 2 hours ago, requesting representation." Nathaniel stilled. "And your response?" "I declined, citing conflict of interest given my representation of Roy and my father's involvement." A pause. "She sounded desperate. Said she had evidence that would change everything about your business practices. Offered to trade information for protection." "Did she specify what information?" "No, but she mentioned records dating back to your early construction days. Something about building inspection bribes, permit irregularities." Nathaniel almost laughed. Diana was playing her final card, attempting to threaten him with exposure of minor regulatory violations from decades earlier. Actions that were well past any statute of limitations and involved officials long retired or deceased. "Thank you for the information," he told Wilson, "and for making the ethical choice regarding representation." After ending the call, Nathaniel turned to Leo and Vanessa. "Diana's getting desperate, trying to find leverage to negotiate. Does she have anything that could actually hurt you?" Vanessa asked. "Nothing that matters now," Nathaniel assured her. "Ancient history from when I was building the company. Regulatory corners cut, palms greased to expedite permits. Standard practice in construction 30 years ago." Leo looked concerned nonetheless. "Desperate people are dangerous, Nate. If she can't hurt you legally, she might try other approaches." "Let her try," Nathaniel replied coldly. "Every move she makes now only strengthens my position in the divorce, in the business community, in the legal proceedings." As night fell over Portland, Nathaniel stood at the penthouse window, surveying the city skyline punctuated by Decker construction projects. In less than a week, he had gone from betrayed husband to victor in a corporate war he hadn't even known he was fighting until days earlier. Diana was on the run, Roy facing prison, Victor Hargrove in custody with his reputation in tatters. The conspiracy to destroy Nathaniel Decker and his company had collapsed spectacularly, leaving him stronger than before. But Nathaniel knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The most dangerous phase of any conflict was the aftermath, when defeated enemies had nothing left to lose. Diana was still out there, desperate and cornered. Victor had allies throughout Portland's power structure who might yet move against Nathaniel. The war wasn't over. It had simply entered its final, most unpredictable phase. And Nathaniel Decker, who had clawed his way up from nothing, who had survived betrayal after betrayal, would be ready for whatever came next. Because he never forgot, and he never forgave. Chapter 8. Blood from Stone. 3 days after Victor Hargrove's arrest, Portland was still reeling from the scandal. Front-page headlines detailed the expanding investigation into corruption within the city's development ecosystem. Victor's former clients were scrambling to distance themselves. Projects were being re-examined for evidence of impropriety, and the political fallout extended to City Hall, where 2 commissioners with ties to Hargrove had abruptly announced personal leave. Nathaniel observed the chaos with cold satisfaction from his temporary command center. His own company had emerged remarkably unscathed, positioned as a victim of Hargrove's conspiracy rather than a participant in the city's endemic corruption. The Riverfront project had received expedited reapproval from a chastened planning commission eager to demonstrate transparency. The merger with Westlake had collapsed as expected, but preliminary agreements with Meridian Investments were progressing smoothly. "The media narrative has fully shifted in our favor," Leo reported during their morning briefing. "You're being portrayed as the honest businessman who exposed corruption, the loyal husband betrayed by conspirators. Public sympathy is running high." Perception management is critical at this stage, Nathaniel acknowledged. What about Diana? Still off-grid. Hasn't used credit cards. Phone remains inactive. But we had a hit from a facial recognition scan at a bus terminal in Boise yesterday. Heading east, it appears. Not Arizona, then, Nathaniel noted. Interesting. She's avoiding the predictable sanctuaries. Vanessa, who had been monitoring legal developments, looked up from her laptop. Roy's revised plea hearing is scheduled for tomorrow. His attorney, new counsel, not Wilson Hargrove, has filed for leniency based on extraordinary circumstances of manipulation and coercion. Nathaniel wasn't surprised. Roy was attempting to recast himself as another victim of Victor's machinations, minimizing his own agency in the betrayal and embezzlement. It was a predictable legal strategy, though unlikely to spare him from significant consequences. Let him try, Nathaniel said dismissively. The evidence of his personal choices, the affair with Diana, the financial theft, the corporate sabotage, speaks for itself. The intercom buzzed, and Leo answered. His expression changed as he listened to the security team downstairs. Sir, Officer Brandon from Portland PD is here. Says he needs to speak with you regarding a security matter. Nathaniel frowned slightly. He had no scheduled interactions with law enforcement today. Send him up. Officer Brandon was a broad-shouldered veteran with graying temples and the weathered expression of someone who had seen too much during his years on the force. He declined Nathaniel's offer of coffee, getting straight to business. Mr. Decker, we've received information that concerns your personal safety, he began without preamble. A credible threat has been identified against you by one of our confidential informants. What kind of threat? Nathaniel asked, immediately alert. A contract, Officer Brandon replied bluntly. Someone has put money out for physical harm. Our informant didn't have specifics on the target date, but the intent was clear and the money significant enough to attract serious attention in certain circles. Do you know who's behind it? Though Nathaniel already had his suspicions. Nothing confirmed, Brandon said carefully, but the timing suggests connection to recent events. Given your role in exposing the Hargrove situation, there are several potential sources. Nathaniel nodded thoughtfully. What are your recommendations? Increase personal security, vary your routines, limit public appearances temporarily. We'll assign additional patrols near your known residences and workplaces, but a threat of this nature requires personal vigilance. After Officer Brandon departed, promising to share any additional information as it developed, Leo and Vanessa looked at Nathaniel with concern. Victor, Leo guessed. Possibly, Nathaniel acknowledged. He has connections in darker corners of Portland, but he's under heavy scrutiny now, limited in his movements and communications. Mom, Vanessa suggested hesitantly. Could she be that desperate? Nathaniel considered the possibility. Diana had never demonstrated violent inclinations, but desperation changed people. Still, arranging a contract hit required underworld connections she likely didn't possess. There's another possibility, he said finally. Roy's former associate from his financial consulting days. Some operated in gray areas, had connections to less reputable clients. He might have reached out, called in favors. I'll intensify surveillance on all potential threats, Leo promised, and beef up your security detail immediately. The threat, while concerning, was not entirely unexpected. Nathaniel had made powerful enemies by exposing the conspiracy. That someone would resort to physical intimidation or worse was simply another challenge to be managed, another attack to be neutralized. Later that afternoon, Nathaniel received an encrypted email from a secured account, Diana, breaking her silence. The message was brief. We need to talk. Not about reconciliation. About survival. For both of us. The River Garden, 7 p.m. tonight. Come alone or don't come at all. The River Garden was a small public park near the Willamette River, relatively isolated after dark in winter. The location choice itself was telling. Public enough to deter immediate violence. Private enough for unobserved conversation. It's almost certainly a trap, Leo warned when Nathaniel showed him the message. Given the contract threat, Meeting Diana alone at an isolated location is exactly what you shouldn't do. I agree it's suspicious, Nathaniel acknowledged. But Diana isn't stupid. She knows I'd recognize an obvious trap. So it's a trap disguised as an obvious trap, so you'll think it's not a trap? Leo's expression was skeptical. Or she genuinely needs to talk, Vanessa suggested. Mom's impulsive, but not violent. Maybe she has information about who's behind the contract. Nathaniel considered the angles. If Diana had information about a threat against him, meeting might be worthwhile. If she was setting him up, anticipating and countering the setup would deliver another blow to whatever remained of her schemes. I'll go, he decided, but not alone, regardless of her stipulation. Leo arranged surveillance coverage of the entire park. I want a security team within 30 seconds of my location at all times. And me? Vanessa asked. Nathaniel studied his daughter. She had proven her loyalty over the past week, providing crucial information and support. But involving her in a potentially dangerous confrontation with her mother crossed a line he wasn't prepared to cross. You stay here, he instructed. Monitor communications, coordinate with Leo's team if necessary. But you don't need to witness whatever happens between your mother and me tonight. The river garden was deserted when Nathaniel arrived at 6:55 p.m. Winter darkness had fallen hours earlier, and the park's sparse lighting created pools of visibility surrounded by shadow. He positioned himself near a fountain at the center. Maximum visibility in all directions, multiple exit routes available. Diana appeared precisely at 7 o'clock, emerging from the riverside path. She looked diminished somehow, her normally immaculate appearance replaced by practical, nondescript clothing, her confident posture now hesitant and wary. You came, she observed, stopping several yards away. I wasn't sure you would. Curiosity, Nathaniel replied simply. What's so important that you'd risk meeting after running? Diana glanced around nervously before speaking. Victor's people are looking for me. Not the police, his other associates. The ones even he fears. Why? Because I know things about operations beyond Portland, beyond construction and development. Victor's network extends into areas that don't tolerate exposure or weakness. Nathaniel studied her carefully, looking for deception. And this concerns me how? Because they're behind a contract on you, Diana said bluntly. Not Victor directly. He's too compromised now. But his partners, the ones who stand to lose millions if the investigation expands beyond Portland. They see you as the primary threat, the one who brought everything down. You could have sent this information anonymously, Nathaniel pointed out. Why meet in person? Diana's laugh was brittle. Because I need protection, Nate. I know you've frozen me out financially, that divorce proceedings are underway, that I'm potentially facing criminal charges. But right now, we have mutual enemies who are more dangerous than our grievances against each other. The proposal was becoming clear. Diana was offering information in exchange for protection, a temporary alliance against Victor's more shadowy associates. What exactly do you know that's so valuable? Nathaniel asked. Names, accounts, operations in Seattle, Vancouver, Boise. Victor's network launders money from multiple sources, not just construction projects. They can't afford for you to keep pulling threads. Nathaniel considered her words carefully. Diana had always been intelligent, observant. If she had been involved with Victor beyond the conspiracy against Decker Construction, she might indeed possess valuable information. And what do you want in exchange for this information? Immunity, Diana said immediately. Your influence with the DA, with the federal investigators. A negotiated settlement in the divorce. Not what I would have received originally, but enough to start over somewhere else. And protection until everything is resolved. Before Nathaniel could respond, movement at the park's western entrance caught his attention. 3 men in dark clothing were approaching with purpose, not bothering to conceal their presence. We have company, he said quietly to Diana, whose eyes widened as she turned to look. Victor's people, she whispered. They must have followed me. Nathaniel activated the emergency signal on his phone, alerting Leo's security team. How many more entrances are covered? I don't know, Diana admitted, fear evident in her voice. I came alone, I swear. This isn't my doing. Whether he believed her or not was irrelevant at the moment. The immediate threat required action. Nathaniel took Diana's arm, guiding her toward the eastern path that led to where his security detail was positioned. "Move quickly, but don't run," he instructed. Running triggers pursuit instincts. They had covered half the distance to the eastern exit when two more figures appeared, blocking that escape route. The fountain area where they stood was rapidly becoming encircled. Nathaniel's security team would be moving in, but the situation was deteriorating faster than anticipated. The men approaching were professionals, coordinated movements, maintained spacing, hands concealed in ways that suggested weapons. "Nate, I'm sorry," Diana whispered, clinging to his arm. "I never meant for this to happen. Any of it." "Save the apologies," Nathaniel replied coldly. "This isn't over yet." He spotted a maintenance shed near the southern edge of the park, a potential temporary shelter with only one approach direction to defend. As he calculated their best route, the lead figure from the western entrance called out, "Ms. Decker, Mr. Hargrove sends his regards. He'd like to continue your previous discussion." The deliberate announcement was telling. These weren't assassins coming to execute a contract. At least not immediately. They wanted Diana, likely for the information she claimed to possess about Victor's wider network. "They're after you." "Not me," Nathaniel observed quietly. "For now," Diana responded. "But once they have me, you're next. I'm just more vulnerable." The approaching men were closing the circle methodically, professionals executing a planned containment. Nathaniel could now see subtle earpieces, the outline of weapons beneath jackets. Where was his security team? A sudden commotion at the northern entrance provided the answer. Leo's men had engaged with another group of Victor's people, creating a distraction and potential opening. "Now," Nathaniel said, pulling Diana toward the gap in the encirclement. "Move!" They sprinted across the open space, pursued by shouts, and then the unmistakable sound of suppressed gunshot. Concrete chipped near Nathaniel's feet. A warning shot or near miss. Leo himself appeared at the park entrance, gesturing urgently toward a waiting SUV with darkened windows. They reached the vehicle as the driver accelerated before the doors were fully closed, tires squealing on wet pavement. "Targeted extraction," Leo reported from the front passenger seat, voice tight with controlled adrenaline. "Police have been alerted, but with careful wording to avoid immediate response during our exit. We have a secondary location prepared." Diana sat trembling in the back seat beside Nathaniel, her earlier confidence completely shattered. "They'll keep coming," she whispered. "Victor's network won't stop until they have me. Or worse." "They won't get the chance," Nathaniel replied, already planning several moves ahead. "Leo, take us to the west waterfront property. It's time to draw them out completely." "The old warehouse?" Leo asked dubiously. "That's not secure, Nate." "That's the point," Nathaniel replied with cold calculation. "We're done playing defense. If Victor's network wants to find Diana, let's give them exactly what they want." As they drove through Portland's industrial district, Nathaniel explained his plan. The waterfront warehouse was one of his earliest investments, converted years ago into a seemingly abandoned property that actually housed sophisticated security systems and multiple escape routes. "You're using me as bait," Diana realized with horror. "After everything, you're still planning to sacrifice me?" "No," Nathaniel corrected. "I'm using the prospect of you as bait while keeping you secured in a panic room with a direct tunnel to the river. When they come, we'll capture them, extract information about their network, and leverage that information to dismantle Victor's entire operation." Diana studied his face in the dim light. "You've become someone I don't recognize. You never really knew me, Diana. You saw what you wanted to see, the polished businessman, the provider, the safe choice. But I was already this person when we met. I just kept that side controlled." At the warehouse, Leo's team had already prepared the facility. Diana was placed in the secure room despite her protests, while Nathaniel positioned himself in a control center overlooking the entire property through hidden cameras. The trap didn't require long to spring. Less than an hour after their arrival, surveillance spotted 3 vehicles approaching from different directions. 8 men, moving with professional precision, clearly intent on breaching the warehouse. What they didn't know was that their every movement was being monitored, their communications intercepted, their faces recorded by high-definition cameras that would identify them within hours. Nathaniel watched coldly as they entered the kill box he'd prepared. The team used sophisticated equipment to bypass the first layer of security, equipment that had been deliberately left vulnerable. They moved deeper into the facility, unaware they were being herded toward a particular section where Nathaniel had prepared his surprise. When they reached the central bay, bright lights suddenly flooded the area, temporarily blinding them. Before they could react, security shutters slammed down, physically separating them from each other. Capture teams emerged from hidden positions, overwhelming each isolated individual with non-lethal but completely effective force. Within minutes, all 8 men were secured. 2 hours of interrogation later, Nathaniel had everything he needed: a complete breakdown of Victor's extended network, financial records of laundering operations spanning multiple states, names of corrupted officials across the Pacific Northwest. "You're a dead man," one of the captured operatives spat when brought before Nathaniel. "You have no idea who you're up against." "On the contrary," Nathaniel replied calmly, "I know exactly who I'm up against, and I know how to eliminate them, starting with you." The man's confidence faltered as Nathaniel explained exactly what would happen next. The evidence gathered that night would be distributed to multiple law enforcement agencies, each piece carefully positioned to trigger a cascade of arrests that would dismantle Victor's entire network. Those captured would have precisely one chance to cooperate fully or face decades in federal prison. Dawn was breaking when Nathaniel finally spoke with Diana again. She sat in the secure room, surrounded by evidence of the operation's success, realizing she had underestimated the man she'd known for over 20 years. "It's finished," he told her. "Victor's network will be destroyed within 48 hours. You'll go into federal protection until the trials are complete. After that, you'll get exactly what the prenuptial agreement specified. No more, no less." "And what about us? About Vanessa?" Diana asked. "There is no us anymore, Diana. As for Vanessa, she's learning difficult lessons about loyalty. Lessons you both should have learned years ago." Chapter 9. Ashes and Iron. The next 6 weeks saw the systematic destruction of Victor Hargrove's criminal network. Federal agents executed simultaneous raids across 4 states. Corrupted officials resigned in disgrace. Construction companies implicated in money laundering filed for bankruptcy. The scandal consumed Portland's corruption-infected power structure like a wildfire, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. Roy Blackwell pled guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testimony against his former associates. His 5-year sentence was handed down in a packed courtroom where he never once met Nathaniel's cold gaze. Victor Hargrove himself died awaiting trial. Officially a suicide, though rumors circulated about retribution from his now exposed criminal partners. Diana accepted protective custody and eventual exile to Europe with a minimal settlement. The day before her departure, she wrote Nathaniel a final letter that went unanswered. She asked for forgiveness, for understanding, for some acknowledgement of their shared history. She received silence. Vanessa graduated early from her Minnesota program, distancing herself geographically and emotionally from the drama that had consumed her family. She declined Nathaniel's offer of a position at Decker Construction, choosing instead to work for an architecture firm in Chicago. Their conversations became increasingly rare, formal, devoid of warmth. "You're punishing her too?" Leo observed one afternoon. "Your own daughter." "She made choices," Nathaniel replied without emotion. "Adults face consequences for their choices." Decker Construction emerged stronger than ever from the crisis. The Riverfront project was completed ahead of schedule, setting new standards for development along the Willamette. The merger with Meridian Investments created the largest construction firm in the Pacific Northwest. New contracts flowed in from clients eager to align themselves with the man who had exposed and survived corruption. The city's elite social circles treated Nathaniel with even more deference than before. People who had known him for decades now saw his true nature clearly. The calculation behind his courtesy, the ruthlessness behind his philanthropy, the capacity for total destruction behind his business acumen. On Christmas Eve, 1 year after Diana had told him not to come home, Nathaniel sat alone in his restored study, the house empty of all traces of his former family. A bottle of expensive whiskey on his desk, untouched. Phone silent. The latest issue of Portland Business Journal featured him on the cover, Developer of the Year. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Leo entered, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "What is it?" Nathaniel asked. "Vanessa is outside. She's been there for 20 minutes, apparently working up courage to ring the bell." Nathaniel considered the information. Since that difficult choice at the beginning, Vanessa had shown no real contrition, only regret at being caught on the wrong side of his revenge. She had witnessed the complete destruction of her mother's life, the exposure of the conspiracy, the ruthlessness with which Nathaniel had eliminated every threat. "Tell her I'm not available," he decided, "and that she shouldn't return. Nate, she's your daughter. At some point." No. The word was final, absolute. She chose her side. She laughed about forgetting I existed. She attempted to steal from me. Actions have consequences, Leo. No exceptions. After Leo departed, Nathaniel poured himself a small measure of whiskey after all. Through the study window, he watched Vanessa return her car, shoulders slumped. She drove away without looking back. The whiskey was smooth, aged to perfection. Like his revenge, it had taken time to reach its ideal state. Victor Hargrove destroyed, Roy imprisoned, Diana exiled, their co-conspirators scattered or ruined. His empire remained intact, stronger than ever. His reputation as someone not to be crossed was now legendary. He thought briefly of the young man he'd once been, desperately building a life from nothing, driven by an unforgiving nature even then. That core hadn't changed. Success had merely refined his methods, expanded his reach, provided more sophisticated tools for destruction. His phone buzzed with a message from the new head of the Planning Commission, confirming approval for Decker Construction's next major project. Another victory, another expansion. The city continued to reshape itself according to his vision. Nathaniel finished his whiskey and returned to his work. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new obstacles, perhaps new betrayals to uncover and punish. He was ready for all of it. The study's old grandfather clock chimed midnight. Christmas Day had arrived. Somewhere, Diana celebrated exile from everything she'd known. Roy counted the years left in prison. Vanessa nursed her grief and abandonment in a distant city. And Nathaniel Decker, who never forgot and never forgave, sat in his empty mansion, surrounded by his victories. Cold vengeance, perfectly executed. Justice, as he defined it, completely served. The clock continued its steady ticking, marking time in a life where loyalty was absolute, betrayal was unforgivable, and consequences were eternal. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.